Scale drawing, scale up or scale down. This is a digital lesson, and the lesson starts with explaining what a scale drawing is. It's a drawing that is increased or decreased by a fixed ratio. So that drawing is going to keep its same shape, but just change in size. So then it gives students some vocabulary. They're going to need this vocabulary on the final slide when they have some drag and drop terms that they have to place in sentence frames. So they're going to start on slide 4. So they're going to use the fill color feature of Google Slides in order to show their drawings. So here we have just a simple rectangle. They want to increase it by a scale factor of 2. So they're going to count the units on each side and they're going to multiply it by 2 to get their new drawing. So to fill in these squares, they just click and hold the squares that they want to fill in. Scroll across until they have now a 6 by 4 rectangle. So they've taken the units on each side and multiplied by 2. Once they have it highlighted, they're going to come up here to this fill color bucket and they can choose any color they like. Now the last thing we want them to do on each slide, and we're going to start with perimeter and we're going to finish with area, is they're going to count the perimeter, the units around the outside of each figure. And they're going to see what happens to the perimeter when we scale up or scale down. So here, if they count around the outside, they're going to get 10 units. So they just type in 10. Their new figure, if they count around the outside, they're going to have 20 units. So you want to point out to the students that what happens to the perimeter, they're just going to take the perimeter of that the first drawing, they're going to multiply by the scale factor. So here they just multiplied by 2 and they got the perimeter of the second figure. Now the next one's just a little bit different shape, so it gets a little bit more tricky as they go. This one they're going to increase by a scale factor of 3. So each one of these sides or sections, they're going to multiply by 3. So it's going to look something like this. They're going to have a side of 6, click and hold again, scroll across, and they can just do a rectangle shape at a time. Come up to the fill color feature, choose a color, and then they're going to finish it with this last section. Multiplying each side by 3. And it should look something like this. Now again, we're going to look at the perimeter. If they count the perimeter of the smaller figure, it's going to be 10 units again. And you can see if they want to predict what the perimeter of the larger figure is going to be. If they multiply the first figure times the scale factor of 3, they should get 30 units. And they can verify that by counting around the outside. Now the next one is a little bit tricky. So you might want to start this one with the students. So with my students, I just did this first section and I let them finish on their own. So here they're going to increase by a scale factor of 3. So each one of these squares there just is going to be a 3 by 3. So it's going to look something like this. So that first square, click and hold, scroll across. Let me start that again. So each one of these small squares is going to be a 3 by 3. So I would start with this and then see if they can figure out the rest of this. Just let them play around with this. So this one should be like this. And they finish it with another 3 by 3. Now we're going to look at the perimeter again. The perimeter of the smaller or the first figure is going to be 12 units. And if we multiply by the scale factor, the perimeter of the larger figure should be 36 units. And they can go ahead and count and make sure that's correct. Then we have just a little recap here. So what happens to the perimeter? If the scale factor is 2, the perimeter of the new figure is 2 times the perimeter of the smaller figure. If the scale factor is 3, the perimeter is going to be 3 times the perimeter of the smaller figure. And if the scale factor is a fraction, which we're going to see later in the lesson, we're going to again multiply by that scale factor. So that means the second figure will be smaller, but they're still going to multiply by the scale factor. The next figure is a little bit different. This time we have a scale factor of 1/2, which means we're going to take each of these side measurements and we're going to multiply times 1/2, which is just dividing by 2. So they're going to have a smaller figure. So if the scale factor is a fraction less than 1, the next figure, the second figure, will be smaller. Let's see if they can figure out how this one is going to look. This one takes several steps. So we want to leave that center piece as white. Now the next one's a little bit tricky also. This one is an arrow shape. So they're going to use these pieces here. They just click and hold on the pieces. And they're going to move them into place to draw this figure. And again, we have a scale factor of 1/2. So the new arrow is going to be smaller. And each one of these measurements we're going to multiply by 1/2, which is just dividing by 2. Now it gets a little tricky up here, so you want to start with the students at the bottom. They click and hold on these pieces. And if we take this bottom section and we divide by 2, we're going to get 4 divided by 2. Now this one is only 2 squares across. So they just click and hold on these blue circles, and then they can move them where they like. They're going to have to play around with it a little bit just to get it to work. And these sections are also going to be 2, 4 divided by 2. These smaller sections on the side here, 2 units, they're now going to be 1 unit if we divide by 2. Click and hold on these blue circles. Takes a little bit of practice, so if it's a little bit sloppy, then you can understand it's a little tricky to do this, so they'd have to kind of straighten it up a little bit as they go. Now, the next part is we want to find where the tip of this arrow is. So if we count from the bottom, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 units. So if we divide by 2, it's now going to be 4 units to the tip of that arrow. So I'm just going to connect this piece with the tip of the arrow, which is now 4 units from the bottom. And the same thing on the other side. And there we have a scale drawing by a scale factor of 1/2. So it's half the size of the original arrow. Now we want to look at what happens to the area when we have a scale drawing. So here we get just a simple square. If we increase this by a scale factor of 2, we're going to have a 6 by 6 square. So click and hold, scroll across till they have a 6 by 6 square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And color it in, any color they like. Now let's look at what happens to the area. So the area would be 3 times 3, length times width, or 9 square units. This one is going to be 6 by 6 or 36 square units. And you might want to challenge the students, see if they can figure out how they can predict what the area is going to be. And what happens here with the area is you're going to multiply the original area of that first figure by the scale factor squared. So 2 squared would be 4. We're going to multiply by 4 to get 36. And we're going to do that again with the next figure also. This one increased by a scale factor of 3. And if we look at the area, the smaller figure is 3 units. And if we multiply by the scale factor squared, 3 squared would be 9. If we multiply 3 times 9, we get 27. And they can check and see if that's correct. And then we have a little recap again. What happens to the area when the scale factor is 2? The area of the new figure is 2 squared, or 4 times the area of the smaller figure. When the scale factor is 3, the area of the new figure is 3 squared, or 9 times the area of the smaller figure. And then the final slide, they have some drag and drop vocabulary. They can go back to that original slide. It was slide 3 if they need to. And they're just going to place these terms in the correct sentence, place in the sentence frames. So a blank, Click and hold on the edge, and then they can move it into place. A scale drawing is a drawing which is increased or decreased by a fixed ratio, and so on. So this is a digital lesson, scale drawing, scale up or scale down.